Welcome to the Delicious Alignment and the Art of Abundance podcast. We cover topics related to health, wealth, and happiness from a spiritual and metaphysical point of view. And I am your host, Rhonda Ryder. Okay, so I have something a little different and very special, I think, for you today. I am sharing a private session I have had with human design expert Isabella Brenda Jones. And I have to say, I only learned about human design about a year ago. It definitely piqued my interest. It started piquing my interest, showing up on my radar a lot last year. And I was like, what is this human design thing? So human design to me, and I am no expert by any means, it seems a little complex, but the insights I received about how I'm wired made a lot of sense. It gave me so much peace to hear Isabella tell me things about myself that I always wondered about or perhaps didn't understand. And hopefully you will see some of yourself in this episode, in this session. For me, it helped me learn to respect my preferences even more and truly trust my intuition even more. For instance, it's okay if I feel the need to be by myself, rest a lot, or leave a social situation early, or change my mind about, well, anything. Some of you listening to this, I know you can relate to what I'm talking about, right? You're at a party and a little bell goes off in your head like it's time to go. Everybody else is having a lot of fun, and you just know when it's time for you, when you've had your fill, your energy is really kind of overflowing and you need to go like recharge. And it's more than just like being an introvert. This is like a way more, goes deeper. So anyway, there are 4 types of people in human design, and I am a projector. Only 20% of the population are projectors. In this session, you'll also learn about the other types as well, including generators and manifesting generators, who together make up about 70% of the population. So if you're listening to this, chances are you may be a manifesting generator or a generator. And just to tell you a little bit about Isabella, she found human design while exploring sacred landmarks in Wiltshire, England. And she's going to tell her story a little bit, which is really fascinating. Human design helped her understand her unique energy design, and after 10 years of study, she is embarking on sharing her knowledge with others. And she does individual sessions, and also she can do a session with a couple or with, mother-daughter relationships, which is really fascinating because you see how you interact with each other, you learn about each other. And I learned something about my husband that transformed my relationship with him in a lot of ways. And just to let you know, Isabella does refer to the visual chart, my chart, and also later on to my husband's chart and my 2 children's chart. So if you're listening to this audio only, don't worry, just listen to what resonates with you. This is a great introduction to human design in general. So let's jump in and get started. Hello, Isabella.
Hi.
How did you get involved in human design? What was that journey like for you? What was life like before, and how did you get into this?
That was a very interesting story. I didn't know anything about human design until I was traveling in England, in Devizes, actually. I was staying, my Airbnb host uh, talked to me about human design and was willing to show me my design. I didn't know what it was. I had a long history of studying spirituality, but I had come to this place where I was a little bit disillusioned with some of the programs that I had been involved in just because I couldn't keep up. I just couldn't keep up. And when this person showed me my design and said, "You're a projector, this is not there's a lot of people that wouldn't even understand this because the world is built by generators," and explained what a generator is and the fact that I didn't have that same kind of energy. I was relieved that my energy was different and it was also meant to be used differently. And I finally had an explanation, words for why I was different. And it was transformative for me. My life changed from that minute on. And so I started studying human design for my own sake to find my footing in the specific ways that I was different, but also what that meant as far as my gifts and what I had to offer and what my purpose was. It just answered all those questions over the few years I started studying. And then I was so excited about it. And it answered so many questions about my relationships and the dynamics of my relationships. And it answered that there was nothing wrong with the other person or me. We were designed in these specific ways. And if I understood that, I could honor that design and learn to work with it and vice versa. And so it brought a whole new level of functionality to my relationships and peace around who I was and the fact that I was uniquely designed to do things in this way. And yeah, it's just been fun for me from the beginning. And I love sharing it. And I get a lot of joy and energy out of sharing it with other people too.
Fantastic. Thank you. Isabella, can you give us a little brief history of the creation of human design and who created it? Anything you want to tell us about that?
Yes, there was somebody who was actually a Canadian physicist who had no previous interest in this kind of thing, who was at the time living in Ibiza. And he had a very powerful spiritual experience where the human design system was basically downloaded for him and all of its features. And it was something that he was able to then, with the help of some collaborators, put into writing and put into a system and come up with the charts or the body graphs that used a person's birth information to show how they were designed energetically. And it is a synthesis of a bunch of different systems. It's a synthesis of the Kabbalah. It's a synthesis of the Western and Eastern astrology and the genetic code. And all of these things are present in some way, particularly the I Ching. And when you see that body graph and you see all those different gates, and they are from the I Ching, some of those sayings, some of the keynotes, that information. And so that it turns out to be something that is beyond astrology, beyond any of those other systems. And it becomes something entirely new and practical. Actually, that's the thing I love about it, is all of these things can be so useful when you find out what your unique design is based on your birth time and place. His name is in the human design system, his name is Ra, R-A, just if you wanted to look up more about him.
I'm so excited about today. I think you're going to do my chart. Oh my gosh, so exciting.
Yes, yes, I'm so excited too. Everyone's design is interesting to me. You have an interest, partly because of what you do in this podcast. You're designed to do this kind of thing. And it's exciting for me to put the pieces together. It's not just a theory, human design. It's really about how we best use our energy. And you're using it in alignment with your design. So it's exciting to show you that.
That is exciting. And anyone watching this, what will they get out of watching you doing my chart?
They're going to hear mostly about your type, which is called a projector. They will understand more about the projectors in their life. Only 20% of the population are projectors, but they're an important part of the population. I hope that people understand how a reading precedes a session with me, but also learn about you and get introduced to human design and what a beautiful, logical, practical system it is.
All right,
Yeah,
great. So I'm a projector, which is only
right,
20% of the
right.
population. You're going to go over maybe what is the more common ones. However, people can learn about projector and all the different kinds of, how many are there?
There's four, but one of the types, which is the generator type, is broken into two groups. But basically, that 70% of the population, people who are one or the other type of generator. And the important difference is that generators have sacral energy defined. And I'll show you that on your chart in a while here. And yourself, the projectors, the manifestors, and the reflectors, that other 30% do not have that definition in their sacral center. Our world is built by generators, maintained by generator energy, and it is basically, we're surrounded by that kind of energy. We're conditioned to both be generators and think that we are generators, whether we are or not. So that's why it's really important to distinguish when someone does not have that sacral energy defined,
Okay.
because they think that they have that kind of consistent work energy, that
Mm-hmm.
consistent regenerative energy, and they don't. And so they might be going upstream by trying to act like a generator when that's not how they're designed.
Is that maybe why I wanted to become an entrepreneur instead of was working at corporate, kind of feeling
Yes.
like I was a bird in a cage, so to
Yes.
speak, and just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have something to do with it. There's several layers of your design that would make it so you wouldn't be able to relax in a corporate environment. But being a projector, that's a lot of stimulation, first of all, for a projector, because we are really designed, first and foremost, to work one-on-one. And very important, we're mostly designed to respond to invitations. So those invitations have to be preceded by very specific recognition of our gifts. In order for the mechanic of the invitation, the projector's strategy for success to work, it has to be very personal. The people that are inviting you, or the person, has to see your uniqueness and understand where your talents and gifts lie. And they have to draw you towards that invitation based on that, not fill a position or just do a certain task. It's because they see this combination of gifts. So that's how we're designed. I wanted to expound upon that a little bit, the invitation, because when you say a projector's strategy for success is to wait for an invitation, it sounds very much like they're not going to be doing much of anything. And it's not about waiting for an invitation to live your life. As projectors, and I'm a projector, so I'll say we can go through our days, through our years, through our life, living normally. We can proceed without invitations for all of the daily things that we do. The invitation piece comes in with the big three. Your primary relationship needs to be an invitation. Your career needs to be an invitation. And that won't come necessarily from one particular person, career invitation. That would be more of a series of invitations that would bring you into a place where you knew that was your place. And then the other place is a community or a place to live. So there's a feeling of I'm invited here or a specific invitation. It could even be that someone suggests to you to move to a certain place and you feel at home there. And there's another part of your design that works in that exact same way about locations that I'll show you. But meanwhile, that invitation mechanic is primarily for the big three. And then there's this other more subtle idea of invitation that works for other kinds of relationships and any situation where you're going to be putting a lot of heart and soul and energy into it. And so resources, your resources. If it's an invitation that's asking for this heart and soul piece, that's asking for a lot of energy from you, or if it's a friendship where you want to be real about it, you want to participate and commit to it to a certain extent, it's really important to not only follow your inner authority, which is something I briefly covered in the other conversation we had. Your inner authority is emotional. So even though your mind is going to have a whole dialogue about this situation, let's say with this potential friendship, your ultimate authority lies in your body. You, Rhonda, personally need to listen to the clarity that comes after a period of time. So your authority isn't available, the full knowing of why a decision is good for you or not isn't available in the moment. You might get a hit, you might get even an instinct feeling about something, and it will be confirmed. But it's important for those with emotional authority to have it confirmed through time. In other words, to wait, sleep on it until there's no nervousness, no hyper energy, no anxiety, nothing like that going on. There's a calm knowing.
For sure.
Yeah. So if you get an invitation into a relationship, into a friendship, let's say, or a collaboration, it's important for you with emotional authority to say, you know what? Give me 3 days. I'll get back to you on Friday. It's important to verbalize that you need a little bit of time. And then try not to analyze it too much. Your brain's going to keep analyzing anyway, but don't get caught up in that pros and cons debate in your head, because it's going to keep moving as your emotional energy goes through its wave. It's going to keep going from, I don't know, I'm not sure, at the low end of your wave. And then, oh my God, that is such a great opportunity. I've got to jump on it. Try not to respond to those emotional ups and downs when you're deciding whether this invitation is right for you. Wait until you feel the clarity and then proceed. So, yeah, that invitation piece is important when you're going to be using a lot of resources. And it's something that, as I explained to you before about the recognition, knowing you're being seen and recognized for a very unique being, that's so important. If you're not, then it's not a correct invitation, no matter how glorious it sounds. And then once the recognition is really there and the invitation is there, waiting for your clarity. So there are definitely times where that learning how to perceive a correct invitation is important. It's not every day, but it's an important thing to understand about your mechanic as a projector. Mm-hmm. And our energy as projectors is very focused, and it's designed to be towards one person at a time. And what we're able to do without any definition in our sacral center is we're able to take in other people's energy very deeply and understand it and feel it and know it. And once we do that, we can reflect back to them if we've been invited to do that. But even if we're not, we understand them on that energetic level.
Well, Isabella, is it possible for you to bring up that slide and show them where my sacred energy is not defined? Because when you showed me that visual, I was able to understand it
Yeah,
more. Yeah.
absolutely. So here's our sacral, where there are 9
So this is
centers.
me.
This
Yeah.
is your design,
Yeah.
and it's based on your birth data, your location and time and date. And this is your sacral center. This is what we look at first off at any design is this defined or not? And to remind you that definition doesn't mean better. It just means that when you see something colored in, whether it's a center, this is the root center, or a channel, this is the splenic center, that's just means those channels and those centers have reliable energy, whereas these open centers do not. But this whole column here that is open for you is where you meet the world, is where you interact with the world. These other parts are what you can know about yourself and other people can know about you that are consistent and reliable. So that's the only difference as far as generally how they work. There are specific differences how the open and the defined work. So that's what I'm referring to here, is our open sacral as projectors allows us to take people's energy in and understand it and magnify it and look at it and experience it. And that's a really valuable thing. But it's not a regenerative thing. It's based on a one-on-one experience where there's been an invitation. And it can be very intense to be under the auric experience of a projector. Our aura is almost like a laser. And so it's better for us to make sure there's an invitation to focus on that person. And that's the description of the open sacral or the undefined sacral. But what I was referring to just a minute ago was your emotional authority. So that's defined here in your what's called the solar plexus center. I like to refer it to as the emotional center. It's defined, which makes that your ultimate authority. You are a projector with emotional authority.
I mean, what
So
does emotional authority mean? Because everyone has emotions and everyone. So how does that make the projector? How does that different for the projector than a generator or?
So, for example, someone without emotional authority, like your husband has sacral definition, and he does not have a defined emotional center. So his inner authority is sacral, meaning his sacral center will respond to questions of yes or no. And it'll respond in a unique way for him, but generally it's in his gut whether or not he has the energy to do whatever is in front of him being requested. So authority wise, that's what he needs to listen to, is his gut. Whereas the emotional center for him, that's open or undefined. And what's happening there, it's similar to your open sacral, is he's taking in emotional energy all the time, other people's emotional energy. He has his own. Obviously, if there's something that's happening that makes him feel happy or upset, he's going to have his own, but he also is taking in other people's energy. And he may not know at the moment, is this someone else's or mine? But the point is that the whole idea of him taking in that emotional energy is for him to learn about emotions by experiencing thousands of different emotional auras throughout his life. That's how he's learned about emotions. And if he's done a good job of remaining conscious and healthy, he is very emotionally intelligent. He may not realize it, but he is. So it's not that those who are emotionally defined, like your 2 children or yourself, aren't emotionally intelligent. We've learned about emotions primarily by experiencing our emotional wave. And so we've had to learn about it in a different way. but that is our authority, whereas your husband's authority is sacral. And there are actually many different authorities. All of them, except one, are based somewhere in the body and not in the mind. And that's the key concept in human design that's very different for people, because we've all been trained to rely on our minds and to be logical and to go with the pros and cons and to simply come up with almost a black and white reason that we're doing something or not. And the mind is more like a computer. It is meant to process things, and it's meant to be open to ideas and bring those in and process them in a certain way. But it is not designed to or evolved to be an authority for us. Our authority, according to human design, lies within the body.
That's great
And
to hear because of
that,
the work. I don't know if you're familiar with calibrations,
yep,
with Gino Mallison
yes,
method.
I've had some. They're amazing. And that's a good example, because when you are forced to get out of your head about a situation, and I've had 4 different calibrations with Raven, and when you're forced to get out of your head and your body takes over and your psyche and your spirit come up with imagery and internal experiences that shift you, you know how powerful the body is in processing. It's so much more efficient than the mind, and it's also extremely wise. And it can be a healing thing just to have one calibration, in my experience. So, yes.
Yeah, so that feeling the emotions in the body, it's so nice to see that this is demonstrated here in human design and other even sciences that are starting to say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And the other thing is, as an emotionally defined person, you are meant to learn from your emotional wave, but you're not meant to analyze it too much. So it's a biochemical thing that's going on. And sometimes you may feel when your wave is on the up, for example, you may give it all sorts of explanations and reasons. I'm up because, and that may not be true, all of that. And the story that your mind came up with. And same for when you're on the lower end, the ebb or the melancholy end. It's all part of a creative cycle that's going on inside your body, but it's not necessarily meant to be analyzed in a mental way. Riding the waves and allowing that process to take place makes it easier for an emotionally defined person to just wait for that clarity.
Okay, so don't need to analyze everything as much as I do.
As much as we all do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just knowing that, oh, the clarity will come and then I'll know it. I'll feel it in my body, or I'll just know the clarity will
Yeah.
come.
Yep. Exactly.
Because yeah, I do, and I still do. I mean, I have a lot more freedom in my psyche than I used to have. Oh my gosh! But just knowing,
Yeah.
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 I want to take a quick second to make sure you know about a few resources for you, including my Love Your Body, Love Your Life online course, free for a limited time, and includes over 20 short videos based on the 5 steps outlined in part 1 of my book, Delicious Alignment: How 25 Women Learn to Love and Transform Their Bodies Using Abraham Hicks and the Law of Attraction. You can gain access to this course by going to deliciousalignment.com/free course. Next is my book, Delicious Alignment, and you can find this book on Amazon by searching my name or click on the link in the show notes. Also, if you are interested in private coaching, my specialty is helping you discover how to love your body and make peace with food, as well as how to let go of anxiety. Go to deliciousalignment.com/coaching to book a session or coaching package.
Now, I think what I'm going to do as far as our time, I don't know if I'm going to get to all explaining all of your channels. You have one here, two down here, and one up here. But I would like to jump up to explaining this channel just because we're on the topic of mind. So you have definition in both this head center or idea center and this ajna or processing center. So you have consistent mental energy. You have a busy mind. And there are specific ways you process, and there are specific ideas that you are attracted to and interested in. It's pretty consistent for you. And this channel, this particular channel, is the channel of logic. And up here in this gate, the gate of doubt, it's constantly asking questions about the bigger, what's the bigger meaning here? How does this apply? And looking for answers, which you can find down here in your mental processing. You can get some answers. But the important thing is that all of this processing is in a collective channel, meaning collective, the human collective, or the greater good, so to speak. This mental energy is not meant to process and come up with answers from the questions that you come up with. It's not meant to be a personal process to figure out your life. And even if you didn't have this logic channel, I don't have that channel. I have two open head centers, but I was trained to try and figure it out mentally, everything. To try and figure out what the right questions are and what the answers are and what's the next thing to do. We're all conditioned to do that. But you have a natural tendency to formulate questions from your doubts and look for answers. And the important thing for you, it being a logical energy, is that it end up being a provable pattern. You're a natural skeptic because your brain is designed to do this little path between doubts and answers, questions and answers. And so for you to have doubts and have questions, and skepticism is normal, and then to look for these answers, but you don't just want any answer, you want something that will substantiate the belief. You can't do that blind faith thing. So even human design sounds logical and it may be provable in experience, but it's important for you to experiment with it until it feels like it's substantiated and that there's some consistent patterns that make sense to you.
Can you give me an example? What?
An example of how a question might come up?
Yeah, of how I process this question answer.
Well, there's the questions and doubts that you have about things. If you're wondering, is this system or this situation, how does it fit? Or even a situation where you're invited into something. I've been invited into this group or this collaboration. I wonder what their values are. I'm not sure. I haven't seen enough. You have a lot of questions and doubts about things in your head, which is normal for you. And then you're wanting answers. And so you process the answers in this processing center. And that's fine, except that your mind has collective energy. It's not meant to process personal situations. And to be aware of what your design is to defer to this process here, which you don't know what the answer is going to be. The body wisdom is going to direct the answer. And so it's fine to go through this process on a personal level, but more important, what this is for the collective. So if you're asking a question, for example, of a podcast guest, and you're asking, what does this mean? You have lots of questions as a host, naturally, but also as a person. You're wondering, where does this fit? How does this benefit us? Or I don't understand that. I need an answer. And the answers you need are very logical and need to be practical. And so you wait for that. But that is the question answer process that is valuable, for example, on your podcast. It's just limited in its ability to help you in your personal decisions, as all of our minds are limited in that capacity to help us make decisions.
Okay.
So that's your logical mind, very active, needing very practical answers for things, but not your ultimate authority. Your ultimate authority is in your emotional process. You're waiting for clarity. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about your profile numbers. So you have a type, which is the projector, and it's very important to understand how to be a projector in a world that's not designed for projectors. And the other thing that I do, by the way, besides taking someone through their design, is I'll also offer a coaching session following that up. So there's practical things that people want to know. How do I, for example, if they're a generator, how do I live in response? That's their strategy. What does that really mean? So I would talk about that in particular situations that they're in, is how to live as a responder. Let's look at your profile numbers, because that's the next layer. There's a lot of layers, a lot of details. The biggest one is your type. It's the most important thing to understand how it works by waiting for in the invitation, in this case, how your aura works with other people. Very focused, needs to be invited. And as a projector, what your gift is, which is guiding the other energy types, actually, ultimately. The profile numbers are found here in the sun and the earth. There's a number 5 in your personality or conscious side, and there's a number 1 here in your body. So this is not conscious. It's operating under the radar, but it's definitely operating. So what you end up being is a 5-1 profile. And I happen to be a 1-3, so I could definitely relate to the 1. But I'm going to tell you about being a 5-1. And the 5 is the heretic, which sounds not fun, but it's very important, because culturally we can get sleepy in a comfort zone. And the heretic is always ready to bring new ideas and new information to us, which at first is a little bit uncomfortable. To continue to evolve, we need the heretic to be on that leading edge. And the number, she's chuckling, the number 1 is the investigator. The heretic investigator, the 5-1, is designed to build over time a foundation of knowledge and skills. Okay, that foundation is the number 1. And that interest in investigating things and getting down to the very foundation of things comes from that energy in your number 1. And it's important to have a long period of time developing that foundation of knowledge, which then gives you a sense of confidence, which then eventually allows you to be an authority in whatever area you're investigating. And from what I understand, you're investigating a lot of spirituality. That's maybe is that what you would call it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that area is where you've developed a foundation, spirituality, and looking at all the different angles of spirituality over years has allowed you to become an authority there. And you're constantly inviting new information in to reinforce that foundation. That's the number 1. The number 5, the heretic, is a transpersonal number, meaning the number one is just doing this sort of head down, very studious, very much looking at the information. Whereas the number five is this way of bringing the information out into the world to the collective. And basically, it's the most universalizing of all of the different combinations of profile numbers. So there's the most potential for you to universalize all this information you've gathered in your foundation of knowledge and take it out into the world. And of course, the podcast is just the most obvious, efficient way of doing that. But the information that you are most interested in is heretical. It's not stuff that people are necessarily comfortable with. There's an edge to it that's important for people to hear about. And so that brings me to what the aura of a 5-1 is. You have your projector aura, which is intense and focused, but then you also have a projection field. Okay, so I have to explain. The word projector has nothing to do with a projection field. The word projection field, the words projection field, they don't mean the same thing in this case. So the projection field that you have around you, around your aura, it basically might as well be a big lit sign that says, I have something you need. I can help you. I can bring you some really transformative information. That's that sign, that's that field that when you meet somebody new, it's very alluring, that projection field. It's, oh, she's someone who can help. And it can even be on an interpersonal level. She's someone who can rescue me from my current situation. So you have that projection field can also have a sense of being a savior or a hero. And that is, listen to her.
No, we don't want that. I don't want to save any more people, rescue anyone. I don't need to rescue anymore.
No, you don't. And so this is the thing. If I was talking to a younger person, meaning someone of our kids' generation, they most likely would just be starting to recognize that they have this if they were a 5. And they would be not sure how to navigate it. And what they need to be told is you don't have to rescue everyone that it comes into your aura. And you shouldn't, and especially as a projector, because our energy is limited and needs to be used based on invitation, which means it has to be correct for us. And if someone's asking to be rescued and they don't have any limitation on how much they need from us, then it's going to be really difficult then to stop and say, okay, that's enough. That's all I can give.
Yeah.
And when you're young, this openness here is a beautiful mechanic. But if you're living unconsciously, then the tendency is to not know when enough is enough. And so you might get engaged in that rescue dynamic and not know when to stop, and they don't know when to stop asking, and it's a problem. And so what happens is over the years, and my mom is a number 5, so I've watched this happen to her over many years, because of these situations not going well all the time or draining us because we didn't know how to discern whether this was a correct rescue for us. Because of that, number 5s can be, I want to say skeptical, but suspicious of people when they see you as the hero or see you as the rescuer. Then it's very reasonable for you to be suspicious. That's actually a self-love mechanic for you.
Yeah, I'm specifically thinking of a couple of instances in my life where close people have been addicted to either alcohol or something else.
Gosh, yes, yeah.
And
Well,
then
then,
I've rescued my dad,
yes,
rescued,
yeah. You don't even
I
have
don't have enough fingers, but
no, you don't, and you don't even have to be a five to have a tendency to rescue in an addiction family system. But on top of that natural situation with addiction, you have a number five, and people do see you that way. Now, the reason that being a number five is a good thing is because the highest and best way that is meant to operate is for you to be attracting with that projection field, attracting those who can get that very important piece. You're not there to give them the whole puzzle. You're there to give them that very important piece, and usually leading edge, it's heretical, it's new, it's novel. Give them that, and that will be a huge boost to their journey. The important thing to remember as well is when you have the opportunity to give that to somebody, it's a correct exchange for you. It's that it be practical. So if you were to say to somebody, they were asking about a situation in their life, and you said, well, it might have something to do with your past life and something about being a star seed. I'm exaggerating how something theoretical or not provable or practical or usable in that moment. If it's not practical, that will be a problem. That person will not be able to receive that information, and that energy that you have of saying I'm the hero and attracting people can turn and be you failed me. So the information that you give in a correct invitation will be it will hit the spot. It will be the one thing they needed to hear. It will be practical and usable in that moment. So just be aware if you're feeling you meet somebody new and you're feeling a little unsure about whether or not you can provide what they need, listen to that. Just listen to it, because that's your body protecting you from a situation in which they will project onto you the opposite of being a hero. So this energy of a five is it's actually meant for strangers, which I think is interesting because of doing this podcast. It's not really even something you have to think about. If you have 100 listeners, let's say, and out of those listeners, I know you have more than that, but out of those listeners, let's say, 30 to 40 are going to get life-changing information out of that particular episode. And you have hosted this and drawn the information out. You are universalizing this to these listeners, then you don't really have to worry about, is this a correct invitation? Am I being projected upon? This is a great format for you because people can take that puzzle piece from that episode that is practical, and you will have done your job as a number five. It's the one-on-one personal ones, the people that are closer to you and that want a relationship with you and want an ongoing exchange with you, that you have to be more considerate of your emotional authority. Let yourself have time to feel, is this the right projection for me to respond to?
is this the right friendship to pursue?
In general, let me just say, for number fives, it's really important that you don't take on a friendship, any kind of relationship that is intimate, including a friendship that has a rescue component.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't want
I'm
that.
very particular about
Yeah.
how I spend my time.
Yeah, as you should be, because
Yeah.
it's limited, because you're a projector. You don't have regenerative energy to give. It's based on circumstance, which is that invitation, recognition and invitation. You don't have energy to spare. Now, generators need to be picky about this too, but yours especially. And the number 5, especially, because it does draw people to you who think that you're going to save them. But it also allows you to universalize very effectively to the collective, which is a very important position. And even your purpose as a projector to guide is being fulfilled when you are universalizing and when you are hosting this podcast, which is why I titled your design a spiritual hero. Because once you have learned how to manage this projection field from your number 5 heretic, then you are really able to universalize your spiritual foundation in a way that can help many people.
I think I'm there. Sounds
You are
like now, yeah, not like maybe even 2 years ago, maybe, but now,
and your reaction to, oh my God, I don't want to have a projection field as a rescuer. That's good. That's a good reaction. That means you've learned, unfortunately, probably the hard way, that you can't and shouldn't do that for everybody. But like I said, having learned that, your podcast is a fabulous platform for universalizing these evolutionary ideas.
That feels really good.
Good.
Hey there, are you interested in learning how to multiply your abundance? I have a free guided visualization on abundance, which you can find at deliciousalignment.com/abundance. When you sign up for the free guided visualizations, you'll also receive 6 of my top interviews on prosperity. Enjoy. Now back to the interview.
All right, so there were a couple other things I wanted to say about your 5-1. The projection field, let's just say you're in a group in person, especially, you need time away from that. We talked about in our first conversation about introvert, extrovert, and how you're more of an introvert. And that number 5 can make you an introvert, that projection field. But truly, what you do need is you need a break from that projection field, from all the expectations that are being projected upon you. And so you need to give yourself a break and be nourished in solitude, and especially with beauty and creativity. That's part of what nourishes you and strengthens you. And holding back and waiting for that projection field to be clear, for your aura as a projector to be fortified, strong, and positive, all of those things, it's very important as a projector. I'm getting a little bit on an aside here because the aura piece is so important. As a projector, your aura is everything. It's what draws the correct invitations to you. And if you haven't done the consciousness work, the healing work, and the kind of usually what comes through meditation, taking your vibration to the next level whenever you can. If you haven't done that, then the invitations that come your way aren't going to be correct. They aren't going to be life-giving. So as you take responsibility for your aura and for making sure it's vibrationally up to speed every possible way you can, then especially with your number 5, what you're drawing to you is going to be healthier for you and more opportunity to actually transform other people's existence. It's an important piece to give yourself the self-care, the time alone, whatever it is you need, so that what's coming into your aura is actually meant to be. It's actually something that's going to give you energy and change the other person positively.
Yeah, I get that.
And it goes along, they are similar. The drawing the correct projection, but also waiting for the correct invitation. They're similar in the patience required and how you're not just sitting there waiting, but you're fortifying your aura in the meantime.
I would also just love to get a little bit of feedback about I'm a caregiver to my dad, and then I realized I took care of my grandmother also for 3 years when I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah, projectors make good caregivers in the sense that we are very sensitive to other people. And you have, in particular, you have half of the, what I would call the caregiving channel. It's called the channel of preservation. You have the instinct end for knowing what is valuable to care for or who you could care for. What you don't have is this 27. This is where the caring energy comes from. So this is the sacral, which would provide that caring energy, which you only have via invitation. So if it's correct for you to care for, let's just say your dad, then you will have energy for that. If it's not, if you're caring for somebody and it's not a correct invitation, then this will be a problem because you don't have this regenerating and fueling the caregiving.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's easy for sure. So are you saying that?
No.
Yeah, are you saying that I have that or I half have it?
I don't know. I don't know if the invitation in these situations is correct for you.
Right.
I don't know. That's, you have to decide that.
Right.
Your body will let you, based on clarity, no, it's not. I need to hire somebody or I need to ask somebody. Now, if there's no one else to do it, sometimes we're forced into situations by life, and then we have to manage it based on our gifts and our limitations. And for you, your limitation is that you don't have this regenerating if it's not an invitation that you would otherwise accept. I don't know what your situation is, but I would just be coaching you on how to do a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
In order to get through something like that, a temporary situation where you have to be a caregiver. And I know how that is. I know that is.
And he's self-sufficient. It's not like I'm.
Yeah.
But he's here and I'm his person. So yeah.
Yes, of course. And so the self-care piece is absolutely vital for you. Finding psychic space alone, finding nurturing activities alone, regenerating yourself through self-care is absolutely vital because you're not going to have this regenerating every day. Does that make sense? So that's that answer about being a caregiver. Yeah. And then your kids, what I would be doing is I would take your, let's say your daughter, and I would take her chart and your chart and I would merge them. And it would give us a design for your relationship with your daughter. And what we would be seeing is places where you have companionship, places where you have compromises, places where one or the other of you are energetically dominant, and places where two ends of a channel meet. There's an electromagnetic draw. And so there's all sorts of different dynamics. With your daughter, I can just say that you both have emotional authority. And so you know when you're interacting with her that whether she's aware of it or not, her clarity is going to come after she sleeps on something. I would also, there's so much to talk about. A partnership session is usually after I've actually had a whole individual session with both people.
Yes. That makes sense.
With permission, I can do two people. With permission from the other person, I can do, for example, if your daughter says, yeah, cool, go for it, then I can do that for you. And we can analyze it. And what I would say about your daughter is, because she has this channel right here, this is a channel where you only have half. You have the 22, 822. And when somebody only has half and the other person has the whole channel, you have to consider that whole channel dominant. You have to basically act as if you don't even have this. And that's challenging. And there are places where she's compromised being in your aura too. And she has to figure out how to allow you to be dominant. But this one in particular is challenging because it's an emotional channel. It's social and emotional. And someone with this channel over time has to learn how to honor their moods. They're designed to only be social, if at all possible, when they're in the mood to. And if they're not, they can learn how to politely disengage or be separate from a social situation, because otherwise their moods will come out. And if it's a bad mood, it'll come out right here in this throat area. I know that's weird, but it does.
No, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I resonate. Yes.
Yeah. So these people are very emotionally powerful because they have this energy running from their emotional center directly up to their throat, whether it's positive in origin, whether they're feeling great or they're feeling not so great, it's going to come out. So that's why it's really important for those people to learn how to honor their mood and be aware that I need to not be with people today or for the next hour or whatever. Yeah, that's just an example. But for you, it's especially hard because you have half of that channel, and this is the gate of grace, and you really do want to be open about your emotions, and especially when you're feeling good. But if you're with somebody who has the whole channel, you have to defer to their moods.
Yeah.
In order for there to be harmony.
Yeah. I pretty much just go away.
Yeah, if she's not able to go away, you go away. You can really sense when someone has that. And she's a manifesting generator. She has an enveloping aura, but that manifesting piece, which I would explain is a very positive thing, but it also has this tendency if a manifesting generator isn't able to live according to their design and get that thing done they want to get done, there's this potential for anger there. Frustration and anger. And so that can be expressed here too.
Can you tell me the types that my husband is?
Yes, he's a pure generator, which means that he's all centered here in his defined sacral, and he also has the gate 22, but there is no pathway directly to the throat, the expression center. So he's purely generating based on this definition here and based on this channel here. He's a pure generator. And all of his manifestation that would come out here in the doing and the saying comes out in relationship, in collaboration with other people.
Wow, that seems so right on. It's amazing.
Your kids are manifesting generators. So they also have the sacral energy. And it's interesting because they share a channel that moves the fuel directly from their sacral, this juicy life energy, all the way up through a gate, the now gate, basically, through a gate where action, words, it takes place instantly. The challenge for them is to learn how to defer to and honor their inner authority. So there's this energy that's always wanting to express itself here in action and with your daughter in words. And here's the authority. Here's the wait for the authority before we jump into anything that's really going to take our resources. So that's a challenge with this kind of powerful energy moving up into manifestation. Both of them have that. And the challenge is to make sure that whatever it is correct for them, that they are responding as generators, not just initiating out of their ideas of what's correct.
Find so fascinating is that what you said last time, that I mean, if you did someone's chart, do you call it a chart? I don't know.
Yes,
Okay.
design chart. Yep. This is a
Okay.
human design chart. Yes.
Human, yeah.
Yeah.
If you did it when
Actually, it's called a body graph as well, just in case you hear that. Yes.
okay. So if you did someone's chart on the day that they were born, it's the same. It doesn't change over
Exactly.
time.
And so this is what's nice, is you can know yourself and other people in a very reliable way. It's the parts of them that are not going to change over a lifetime, no matter what they go through. And so unlike any kind of personality questionnaire, which can reveal truth, but it reveals truth about you that would include aspects of your definition, I'm sure, but also things that are revealing what you've gone through up to that point. That can change over a lifetime. So the nice thing about human design is that foundational piece that's black and white, or in this case, red and brown and black, that is reliable. You can always go back to this and look at it. It's a lens you can look through, and you can look at your past, and you can look at your present situations, and you can look ahead and know that the guidance that you get from this is going to be consistent. I'm not sure how much more you want me to share, or if you have other questions. I love answering questions, but yeah, just I guess the other thing I'd say about your husband is be aware of his open emotional center. People that have that open really don't like to be around conflict. It's hard for them when they hear people that are angry, because they're taking that anger in and feeling it twice as much as the angry person is. These open centers are magnifiers, and they feel it. So it's being a kid, especially, is difficult with this undefined aspect. And so he would have naturally developed coping skills for how to avoid conflict. And he'd rather not be in the room. So if there's an avoidance kind of behavior, it's understandable. And as an emotionally intelligent, mature adult, of course, in a relationship, he has to learn how to have healthy disagreements with his spouse, for example. But
wow, that explains a lot. That explains a lot.
Yeah, generally,
right there.
He's going to want to be in a very loving, nurturing, and positive environment, both at home and work, with this openness.
We've been together 20 years, and I was a lot more emotional up and downs, maybe.
Yeah.
And with my evolution, hopefully I've learned how to be nicer in my close relationships, which I have. But yes, he's really good at just walking away. And
yeah,
I didn't always like it, for sure. In the beginning, I didn't like it at all. But then I was like, good for you. I realized it was a way of me trying to get attention. And eventually it was great for us, because for me, because I just, okay, that doesn't work, so I'm not going to do that anymore.
You learned. Yeah, you learned. And he then figured that you are a safe person, and you guys have figured it out over 20 years. That's awesome. But it's also the kind of thing, had you been informed early, hey, this is how he operates, it might have given you a little head start on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you said about him is just so spot on. It's amazing. Well, this has been really fascinating. My mind is just exploding a little bit, and I just can't wait to absorb it all even more and learn from this. And I want to ask you, Isabella, how can people find you? What are your services? How does this all work, to work with you, etc.?
Okay. Yeah, I do my scheduling via email. So my email, you can put it in your comments, but it's Isabella B, the letter B, Joy at Gmail. And I have a new Instagram account called Isabella's Light. And I would love to get more followers, and I'll be posting more about human design. So I've been studying human design for 10 years now, and I do one-on-one sessions on Zoom. And I also do partnership sessions. I've done up to 3 people with their designs combined at one time, but I can also do partnership sessions. So all of my pricing would be something I could communicate to you over email.
Again, Isabella, this has been so fascinating. I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing all of this. It's just really mind blowing. And anyone listening, feel free to reach out to Isabella at her email address and see what you guys can cook up and maybe work with her. I highly recommend it. She has been so generous with her time and in sharing with us, all of us, my session, and I'm making it public, which is fun. So, yeah, I want to just thank you so much, Isabella, for being here and doing this.
You're so welcome. It was my pleasure. I loved getting to know you through this.
Thank you. Right,
Thanks,
thanks.
Rhonda.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Isabella Brenda Jones. You can connect with her via email at isabellabjoy@gmail.com or on Instagram at Isabella's Light. Speaking of social media, I would love to connect with you. Here are a few ways you can do that. You can join my Facebook group, Delicious Alignment. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. This way, you'll never miss an episode. And you can follow me on Instagram at Delicious Alignment. Feel free to tell your friends about this podcast. I would so appreciate that because you sharing this podcast is the absolute #1 best way to help us grow. All these links, of course, are in the show notes as well. Join me every Thursday for a new episode. Well, that's it for today, my friend. See you next week.